Hi, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. Merry Christmas. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a free server that will handle all of your APNS calls. That is, if you want to send remote notifications between users of your app or from a server to all of your other clients, this is what you need. Remote notifications follow a triangle pathway for delivery. So your app will send a request to your server will send a request to Apple, and then Apple will forward on the notification. Like everything in Apple development, you need a certificate, and you install that on your server. We're going to use the P8 certificate, as that is the single certificate that can be used to authenticate all messages from every app that you ever develop, and it doesn't expire. Apple was copying a fair bit of flack because certificates would expire and clients weren't getting their notifications, etc. So if you've heard about or read about the P12 or the PEM certificates, that's old news. Let's have a look. Okay, so we're running a server, and what we're going to use is a service called Heroku. Heroku is free unless you need to use up a lot of their processing power, etc. But you don't tend to send squillions of notifications, so for a notification server it is a fantastic resource. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new app that's going to run on Heroku. We'll call it SA Swift Almanac Members and Sandbox. And you can choose your region, either the United States or Europe. I'm saying the States, and just create that app. Okay, if we just go back to all of the apps, you'll see here that I've already created one, which is one I created earlier. And you can see I've used it previously here in an app that I've developed. And obviously it's really great to have two versions. You've got a development environment and a production environment. So anyway, just pointing that out to you. So the next thing we need to do is go to deploy, and our deployment method is going to be Heroku Git. And then we need to download and install the Heroku CLI. And in the Mac operating system, you type in this line here, brew install Heroku /brew/Heroku, and that will install it everywhere. So I'm not going to install it because it's already been installed on my computer. And it gives you these nifty little commands. So we'll go into our terminal and we'll go Heroku login. And log in. Okay, that's great. And then just on the desktop, I'm going to create a new folder, which I'm going to call SA Members Sandbox. So now I've got that folder. We go into that folder, so that's that CD My Project, and then we'll create a Git repository, and then we'll set up this Heroku Git remote minus SA Members Sandbox. And that's all good. Now, then we've got this part where we have to deploy our application. I will come back to that in a minute. Okay, so we need to go to Settings, and then down in Build Packs, we need to add Node.js, and that will install when we want to. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can put a custom domain in here so that you don't need to use this domain, which is the domain for this server build, the URL for it. If you want to use your own domain name, then you can do that. And you just type add domain and put, I don't know, apns.swiftalmanac.com. Save the changes, and then it gives you this deployment target here. And then if we go into, I use Cloudflare, and if we log in, and you just create a CNAME, APNS, and paste in the DNS that you want it to point to, add the record, and APNS is there. Okay. Okay, so going back to deployment. So what this Heroku CLI allows you to do is play around with things on your computer, and then once you have saved them using these 3 commands, and it pushes them back from your computer up, or takes the repository and moves that back up to your Heroku server, and whenever you do a push, it will restart the service with any changes that you have. So how do we, what do we want to set up here? So there is, this is what it will look like in the end. Essentially, there's this index.js code, which is what it's going to run. There is a package.json file, which is all the node modules that we want to install, and this proc file, which is needed by Node to know what it's actually running. So if we just have a look at the package.json file, so we've got the name of this project, members all add sandbox, the version, description, the main file that we're going to run, which is index.js, and there's some scripts. So there's a starting script and there's a testing thing there. We don't need to worry about that. I wrote it. It's got this license type, and then the dependencies, which these are the modules that it's going to run. So it's going to run APN, which is a external library that's been written by someone else, which is really handy for us. It's going to run version 2.1.3, and it's going to run a module called Express, which is 4.14.1, and I wrote this 12 months ago, so there could be later versions, but in any event, that's the 2 dependencies we want to run. And for the engine, we wanted to run it under Node, and the version when I was running it was 6.7.0. So what we do is, now that we've got those files in there, we just go npm install. That will read the package.json, and it will download all of the files that we need. There you go. So I suppose I'd better put them back. I should have copied those, but anyway. Okay, so all these node modules have turned up, and the only thing we're missing is this apns.p8 file, which is the file that we need to get from Apple. So we'll head off to our trusty developer account. We go to account. We want certificates, identifiers, and profiles. And you'll see there's a whole heap of certificates around here. We want to go to keys. And you'll see I've got an old key and I've got a Swift Almanac key. And basically just click on the plus sign, bearing in mind that you only need one key for all of your apps. So I'm just showing you the process. So we'll just call this the APNS Server. Oh, it doesn't like the fact that I've already reached the maximum number of keys. So, well, I'll just revoke it. Why not? Okay, so we'll create a new one. We'll call it Swift Almanac. We want the APNS. We go continue. We go confirm. Okay, so now I've got a new key ID, so we'll keep that. We will download it. As I said, it just downloads once. It gives you this auth key. And you'll see that this SNY, the actual key ID is in the name that they give you. But you can always go back in and it's there in the key ID. So once you've got the key ID, the way our system works here, we need to rename this .p8 file to APNS. So that's all of our files. So what we want to do is we want to deploy our application. So we'll go back to the terminal, have a quick look. Everything's correct. Everything's correct, yes. So we just type git add dot, which is basically adding every file recursively in this directory to the Git repository. Then we do a git commit. We need a little message, and you can see it's created all those files in the repository. And then we push it back up to our Heroku master, git push Heroku master. And that's going to push everything up. And it's building it all. It's looking pretty good. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. It's all deployed. And then if we go over here to the view logs, yes, it says it's up and listening on port 44.416. So that's great. We can now send notifications from one app to another app. Now let's have a look at the index.js file, which is the JavaScript file. Let's open that with text edit. Now I'm not a JavaScript guru, so but essentially Express is a HTTP server. So by running the Node application, we're essentially running a web server. And here it is here, server equals require http.server. And then what we do is for every slash message that we want, so our server URL /regular is just going to print out hello world. If you went to a browser, that's what it would do. If we send index.js, then it just returns a send status and it sends us this text saying index.js is called. Okay, so if the if the latter part of the URL is send.js, then we're getting this token, a message, and the application passed to us, which we're sending to this send APNS function, which is down here, and we send back a send status of 200, so it's all good. We set up our environment port to being a random number, or otherwise 8000. We need to send this server listen thing. That's a function of Node.js. Now, if we look at the really important stuff, which is the send APNS, we're getting the device token, a message, and the application. So we're setting up the Node APN library, which we've included. So we get the APN provider is what we're going to pass to the Apple server. So there's a token, there's the this key file, which is the .p8 file that's in the directory. There's the key ID that we need. We need to change that. There's the team ID, and that's my team ID for my Apple developer account, and whether or not this is production, and this is the sandbox, so we'll set that to false. Then this is going to be called every time we send a single notification. So for a notification, we set up a new notification using the API. The topic in the notification is our app, and that's our bundle ID. There's an expiry, and we're setting that to be 1 hour from now. There's the badge indicator. I can't remember what 3 is, but there's various different values for the icons that you send. There's the sound. If you want to send a ping or whatever sound you want to send, you can attach that in here. And display the message which has been passed, and send any payroll data in your app for did receive remote notification. So essentially what you can do is if you've got multiple different types of notifications, you can give them a different ID, and then when the app at the other end receives it, it's sort of like passing a secret code. So and then the notification at the other end can act on it, or you can just send, like, well, for instance, 123 is the ID here. If you received a notification that didn't have 123 in it, then you could say, well, this is bogus. But with all the other security that's going on, it's pretty unlikely you're going to get a bogus message. So anyway, then what we do is we send this off to our to Apple. We send the notification and the device token. We get a response, and they'll say for each one, has it been sent okay or not? And that just gets printed into our console log here in Heroku if we've got a problem dealing with Apple. So what you need to understand in terms of what we're doing is there is this device token that we haven't covered, and basically every time an app registers for like that it's opened, we'll make some calls, and this device token will be returned to us, and then we can save that device token to our database, but we'll pass it, and that's basically how we identify who we want to send our message to. Then we've got the message and the app. Well, that's basically our bundle ID. In fact, it is our bundle ID. But that means that this particular piece of code can be used for any app to send to any device to send any message. Now, you may want to add more parameters because you might not always want to use this badge. You may not always want to use this ping, but you can simply do that by adding more parameters up here in this send.js, and then passing them here. So just to show you, even though I'm not going to upload it, var sound equal request dot query dot sound. where sound is like a sound equals 2 or something like that in the URL. That's how it gets passed in here. And then you just pass sound, and then you put sound in here, and finally down for the sound badge you just put sound, and you'd be that way you could send a different sound with each different type of notification, or some could be silent, etc. Although I've changed that, didn't I? It's badge. Sorry. It would be better like that. So look, so that's basically the runnings of the index.js file. If you do need to, if you do want to make changes, then well, that's the way to do it. And of course, anytime you make changes, even though I've made some bad ones there, let's fix those up. I was in text edit, and then I text edited. Did I save? I did. Or it saved for me. So we'll get rid of sound. We'll get rid of that. Oops, we'll get rid of that. And oh, what was it? Something like that. What does our real one do? Oh, that's, yeah, that would look good. Okay, so we've made the changes. So I updated the key ID, so that's correct. So we need to go back in, do our git adds, do our commits. So it says one file changed, and then push that to Heroku. So that's all fine. It'll rebuild, and with luck you'll see it here as well. Now you might be asking, well, if the password wasn't correct, why? Or if that key ID wasn't correct, why did this run? And the reason is that key ID is what gets sent to the Apple server. So what would happen is, if we hadn't changed it when we sent our first notification, it would get it sent to the Apple server, and Apple would go, no, that's not the right key ID for your P8 file, and it would barf and send it back. Okay, so that's our server up and running. In the next lesson, we'll be looking at writing the client code. So there we have it, our APNS server. Let's hope that it's working, and in the next tutorial I will show you how to write some client code to send notifications between two clients. If you've learned something, and that's everyone, like the video and definitely subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss out on the client side coding and all the other fantastic tutorials that we've got planned for 2018. Have a great Christmas, holiday season, or great times with the family. Cheers.